to Back to Life podcast, episode 10. If you're watching this, you could see that I'm not by myself. I am with Stephanie Murray, one of my good friends, and we're here to talk to you today about whatever's going to come out of our mouths. We don't really know. So anyway, I'm so grateful to be here with you, and the thing about Stephanie I want to share is that one of the things that drew me to her was, before we really connected as friends, was she was part of a personal development program. I guess you could say a 90-day program, and it was a group that I was facilitating, and she was part of that group, and it's really about like getting into the heart of things, and wanting, just to get your goals and your find out what's blocking your dreams and stuff like that. And one of the things that drew me to her was her gratitude for life. And that's one thing I've been learning a lot about. And gratitude is the start of receivership. It's actually that you if you don't have gratitude, you're not gonna it's gonna be harder to receive. And so, and we'll be talking about receivership quite a bit in this podcast and the ones to come. And so I'm just really grateful that she's here. I did not see this coming. I don't think she saw it coming either. So we're both in a place of obeying God's direction, and we don't even really know what this is going to look like. And so what I love about that space is it's raw and authentic, and it's just going to be what it is. And I do know that we both have been called to share our testimonies and to really spread the good news of the message of Christ. And it's something that I've been very, very convicted of the last 3 months, or actually starting in January. God was really working on me. So anyway, thank you for being here.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't want to keep talking to the camera, so I'd rather talk to you actually. So we're actually in a room that was created by
Beautiful.
God. So this used to be an office,
Hmm.
and it was very much a very work hard. You got to work hard office.
Okay.
Well, now it's way different. So now we're in a space where we're on meditation cushions or prayer cushions, and I love the space that's been created here.
Beautiful.
And you're the first one to be doing Back to Life in here. So welcome to Back to Life.
Thank
And
you.
Stephanie is going to be a part of Back to Life from now on until whenever it's done. I don't know if we'll ever not be done with Back to Life. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I'm glad that you're here and we're in our comfy clothes.
Yes.
Well, at least I am. She dressed
I'm
up.
I I'm actually very comfortable.
Oh my God, because
Yeah.
I think that that's the key is just
Yeah.
to be our,
I'm very
to
comfortable.
be,
I
our, be
hate
ourselves.
Right. I hate to be cold. So as
Oh
long as
yeah.
I'm not cold,
Hmm.
usually I'm comfortable. So
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable.
Well, good. And it's March and it's snowing.
Yes. April,
Oh,
really.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm
We're in April. It's fine.
it's all the same.
One of these months.
Yeah.
One of these months where you don't think it's still supposed to be snowing this hard.
Yeah, I don't think it is supposed to be, but anyway. Yeah, so we're in Colorado, so in case anybody's listening or like, well, what are you talking about? So
Right.
yeah, we're in Colorado where tomorrow will be 80 degrees.
Yes, exactly. My tulip, I should have taken a picture of it. It's popping out of the ground, so it's pretty funny. April showers, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's happening. It actually turned into snow though. So it was showering and then it snowed. So yeah.
Right, right.
So yes, I am very grateful to be here. Like
Yay, I'm so excited.
Sherry shared, that's how we met. That was our introduction. And I remember on one of the last days someone said, "You this may be the last time you see the people you're doing the 90 days with.
Yes.
This may be the last time you interact with them." And I'm just so grateful that that's not our story.
Yeah, me
Like,
too. Yeah,
yes.
I went in a different direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just like you said, we didn't know, we didn't know what God's plan was for us individually or in our relationship. And I'm just so grateful that this is a part of it.
Yeah.
Like you said, it wasn't anything that we planned, anything that
Yeah.
we created, anything we thought of. It
Yeah.
was God speaking to your heart and
Yeah.
then you sharing that with me. And He'd already spoken to my heart about the same thing, about us using our voice, about
Yeah.
us speaking up. And sometimes for me, I feel like I didn't do it there was a lot of reasons. One of them I would say was fear.
Yeah.
Um, and then at the same time, knowing that hearing testimonies actually helped me.
Yeah.
And so it was like, if it helped you, why aren't you willing
Yeah.
to help somebody else by doing the same thing that
Mm-hmm.
helped you?
Right.
So I feel like that was very convicting to me, and I was still had that resistance, that hesitancy,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like you sharing where you were at and that you were struggling in the same way, um, and at the same time you were pushing against it too. You
Mm-hmm.
weren't just like, oh, that's too hard, it's too difficult, I'm not going to do it. You still were like, I still need to do it, I'm still being called to this. And I feel like because we were both like in resistance and at the same time willing,
Right.
that God was like, you guys can do it together,
Yeah.
put us on the
Yeah.
same path.
That what a concept. You don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that for me that's very true. I think
Mm-hmm.
being on here and actually being vulnerable and in
Mm-hmm.
humility, if and if viewers go back, or if your listener go back and you go back and you start from episode 1, you're going to see me in a wrestle, and a little bit
Yes.
of a wrestle where it's not totally obvious. However, if you compare it to where I am today to the first one, it's totally different. And so now I'm in a place of like, it's a not hiding place, right? And really using my voice to express what I feel about God and what I feel about Jesus. And one of the things that I was walking in was being afraid to even say the word Jesus.
Wow.
Um, and I would talk about God, and I remember I was talking about God recently, and someone had said, "Well, that word makes me uncomfortable." And
Wow.
I sat with that a minute. I'm like, it's okay if it makes somebody uncomfortable. I'm at a place now
Yes.
where I'm not about comfort.
Yes.
Like, this is about what's really true for me, and really, I mean, just I've been set free, and like people, I hear I could call them creepy Christians. Just free, amen, Jesus. I don't,
I think you just coined something. You might have created a shirt.
well, actually, I didn't get the word, so I don't want to take credit for the creepy Christian word, because
That's so
that
funny.
came from, we're gonna do a non-sponsorship. So the non-sponsorship is for Michael Jr. So Michael Jr. is a
Okay.
Christian comedian,
Okay.
and he uses
It's hilarious.
Christians, and he's like, if you don't know any, it's you. So a shout out to Michael Jr. There's your free. Don't get paid for promoting Michael Jr.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
yeah, yeah. So I got that from him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's actually, through his jokes and stuff, has taught me a lot, because I love to laugh, and I'll
Yeah.
probably make cracks on here all the time, because I just think, you can still be a Christian and laugh. You can still
Right.
love Christ and laugh. It's okay. You
Right.
have permission. It's okay to make a joke. So yeah, he said that, like, if you don't know any creepy Christians, it's
It's
you.
you.
It's like, please God, I don't want to be a creepy Christian. Amen, Jesus. So anyway, that's what I would go to. I would think about that. Well, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be
Right.
pushy, and I don't want to like thump people over the head with the Bible or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so, but really, it's just come back to what my truth is, what's my expression,
Yes.
and this is, we both prayed about this before we started, is that we both have a little bit of fear around
Mm-hmm.
expressing ourselves and our truth. And for me, mine was shut down at a really young age. I didn't have, I came from a really, and I've talked about this, a really traumatic childhood, and
Mm-hmm.
abuse, and you name it, physical, mental, emotional, it all happened. Even sexual abuse happened as well. So I was pretty traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're traumatized like that as a child, you don't trust. You grow up trusting nothing.
Nothing.
That nothing can
Mm-hmm.
be trusted. Not God. Not your nobody. No adults. So I did whatever I could to protect myself, and that would
Mm-hmm.
be holding it in. Um,
Wow.
and so, and what I've learned recently is holding it in is a proponent to disease.
Wow.
And as you know, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. Not that it's not the only cancer. I like to do lots of them at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
I like to get
She's
them
like,
all done.
yeah.
So
She's
me
like,
and my
line them up.
yeah, me and my
Oh
oncologist have
my
a
God.
joke about that. And I know it sounds kind of morbid, but like, I mean, if you're not going to be able to joke about it, like this is just what's happening, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So so I say, you know, stage 3, if you have anything going on in the colon, it's because you're not expressing yourself. So I am going to say a bad
Wow.
word, and the bad word is shit. So you're
Uh-huh.
holding shit in, basically. I mean, it's really true.
Oh
It
my
really is
God.
true. So
I never
it,
thought about that.
yeah. So it's linked to holding your expression in, like you're just
Oh,
gripping
wow.
it so tightly that you're not able to let it go. And so that's what I've
Wow.
been taught around that recently by
Mm-hmm.
God. Like it's like you're holding too much in. So
Mm-hmm.
this is why we're doing this, to
Right.
express things and
Right.
let out your feelings. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. You're not your job is not to worry about who you're going to offend. And
It's
so
so true.
that's how I lived my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is I don't want to offend anybody about how I feel, and then we can go into boundaries too. Like
Right.
I had no boundaries because
Mm-hmm.
I just had to please everybody, make everybody else happy. And even up until just recently, I was, you know, really struggling with the boundaries, which I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk a lot about. That's probably like a four episode podcast is boundaries. So anyway,
Uh-huh.
hindered expression. And so what was it like for you growing up, with your expression? What did you?
So I feel like I could express. So this is so when I was 4 years old, I was molested by a classmate when I went on a play date with my mom and her mom were playing in the basement, and so I was molested, and then unfortunately I didn't tell my mom about it. I didn't talk to her about it, and it was my friend. So when it happened, whenever I hear of sexual abuse happening to people, a lot of times they're afraid, and a lot of times it may be like an opposite gender, it may be force. It's these different things surrounding it,
Right,
and that was not my experience of it. And also it was like introduced to me as like a game, and she called it house, right?
right,
And so, unfortunately, when that happened to me, I showed some other children the same thing. So I
got it.
was molested, and then when I was a child, I molested some other kids. Um, because, and what's confused or not confusing, what happened is, it felt good, and at the same time, it was wrong in the
Right,
wrong context.
right.
And so, when one of those children, thank God, told their parent, my parents came back to my brothers and I and told us, that we hurt somebody, like because um, her, their mom didn't say like which one of my parents' kids did it, and it was
Oh,
four of us at the time.
got it.
So they sat all of us down, and it was like a family meeting, and they were like, they were telling us about our bodies and like how important it was not to touch other people's bodies, let other people touch us, and
Right.
they didn't use the word molestation. They just said like that what I did was wrong and that I'd hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, I was very concerned about not hurting
Oh,
somebody.
got it.
And so I feel like that's what, and at the same time, when that happened, um, I just remember my mom crying, and I remember my dad, like his shoulders like sunk when they were telling us about it. And unfortunately, they never asked me any questions. They're like,
Oh God.
why did you do this? Like, or did you see something? Did this happen to you? And it's no judgment to my parents. It's just that um, they had gone through sexual trauma that they hadn't worked through
Mm-hmm.
or told anybody about. So when mine came up, they had no words
Yeah.
for, they it's like they couldn't ask me about mine because they'd never told about theirs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
from that point, like, so I don't know how old I was when we had that family meeting. I was really young though. It's like
How old were you
when I
when
got
when
molested, I
yeah.
was like 4.
Okay,
I was in Head Start.
you were really young.
Yeah, really, really young,
Right.
really, really young. Um, so when I acted it out, though, I was older.
Okay.
I just don't know. I don't remember exactly what age it was.
Right.
So so they told us it was wrong and don't do that and stuff like that. Excuse me. I was never asked about it though,
Right.
or like helped through why did
Right.
this feel good and also it's wrong and like
Oh
so
yeah.
then I felt like I'm a bad person.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
you
that's
know,
where the shame comes
yeah,
in. Yeah.
exactly. I
Yeah.
had so much shame and so
Yeah.
much guilt for hurting somebody and then like this doesn't make any sense, you know? So I was never talked like we never talked about it. We didn't
Right.
talk about it more. Like that day was the only day we ever talked about it.
Right.
So that's when my expression started being
Right.
like
Push down.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly because when something it just like we didn't have those type of conversations. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
It wasn't brought up again. It wasn't asked about. And so when that happened, further on, you know, you keep growing up and you keep being challenged by,
Right.
oh, I heard this at school, or I heard that, or these
Right.
different things. And you can feel like, I think this is wrong. And also, I didn't feel like I started hiding.
Right.
I didn't feel like I
Right.
could, oh, if I'm struggling with this or I'm thinking about that or I heard this at school, but that's the opposite of what I'm hearing at
Right.
home or at
Right.
church. I didn't feel like I could share those things. I went into
Right.
hiding and shame.
Right.
And so, yeah, from a very young age, I went into hiding and shame instead of expressing and asking questions and getting that support.
Right.
And it was there. Like, my parents both taught in church.
Yeah.
Like my dad taught on Sundays
Yeah.
and my mom taught Sunday school. And so those lessons were good lessons, you know, don't steal, don't fight, don't kill or you know
Right.
these
Yeah.
different, you
Yeah.
know,
Don't kill people.
yes.
Devon, don't kill people.
Yeah.
Probably
Those
not a good
10
idea.
commandments. Yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
they were you know, those lessons are good. And so they're communicators. They can definitely have taught me and showed me. It was just I was so ashamed of everything else that was not brought up. So
Yeah.
the
And that's because it wasn't brought up. Yeah.
exactly. So everything taboo
Right.
or
Right.
whatever. And so all the things I really needed to know about.
Yeah. 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 I think yeah, for me I didn't have that option of like the, I would never go to my parents for anything.
Wow.
I was scared of my parents.
Mm.
So I have a little bit of a more of an extreme with the
Oh,
parents. I think also too like with my parents, probably the same with yours is like there's a generational thing as well where it's like, well,
100%.
my parents had no clue how to deal with anything. So like
Mm-hmm.
they
So true.
your parents probably didn't even know that that was even a thing to even do. You know what I mean? That might have not been like it
Exactly.
it it's like they they probably weren't thinking, oh, like we don't want to ask her questions. You know, it just didn't even occur to them
I
that
think
was a
so.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like being at such a young age, that is difficult. I mean, I can tell you like that would be difficult to express. Like and
Mm-hmm.
then to even fathom the idea of that you were hurt, that probably didn't even cross their minds
Mm-mm.
because they don't want you to be hurt, right? So
Exactly.
that's probably why they didn't. I mean, I don't know why they didn't, but I'm speculating that
You're
that's probably what it is.
you're completely right because in my book I talk about my parents like if I spent the night at anybody's house or interacted with them, they met their parents. They got phone numbers.
Yes,
They
that's great.
walked in people's
Yeah,
houses. Like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So how it happened does not make any sense. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
on a play date in the daytime, I didn't spend the night. I was
Yeah,
like,
that
I've
would be
never been
so unexpected, right?
exactly
And how old was the person? Do you know? The same
my
age?
same age. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
it's
they
so sad because they were being abused. Had to be.
probably, yeah, more than likely, that's
Yeah.
a true statement because you don't know what that is at that young age.
No.
So somebody had probably done that same thing
Exactly.
to her or
Exactly.
him.
Yeah. To her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like all those things. It's not. It wasn't a thing of negligence. You
Right.
know what I'm
Right.
saying? So yeah, it was just
Yeah.
very just everybody in the situation was just very
Yeah.
unfortunate.
It
Yeah.
really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. there is so much shame that comes from that.
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean, think about so you mentioned like, well, I know it felt good, and then at the same time it's that it feels bad,
Mm-hmm.
and like which one is it? And I think that being stimulated at a young age is very unfortunate, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is what I experienced as well. And I've gone to back to that scenario too before, of like, well, it feels really good, but I'm supposed to hide it, and I was threatened. So I was threatened to
God.
be flushed down the toilet if I told anybody.
Oh my God.
And so,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what it created for me was a life of like, well, you can't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would, I would go on, I'd meet guys and like go on dates with them, and after a while we, sleep together, and then I would
Mm-hmm.
just feel so much shame over around that, right?
Yes.
Just, and
Mm-hmm.
like, don't tell anybody, because that's not a good thing. Something dangerous is going to happen if you tell somebody. So I mean,
Wow.
that impacted my adult life so much
Oh
and my
yeah.
choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I never said anything until probably I was in college at the time. So I think I was 19, or no, 18. I started going to school, and I told my dad what happened.
Oh my God.
And my dad does not have the tools or the equipment to deal with any of that. And so it was a huge mistake to tell him,
Ooh.
because he said, "Well, we were arguing about the age. Well, it was you were this age when it happened." And I was like, "No, I was this age." And so there was an argument over age. It wasn't really a discussion about, "Well, I'm sorry
What
you were hurt
happened?
and that
Right.
happened to you."
Mm-hmm.
It was more about arguing over the age. And as I
Mm-hmm.
look back at it now, I just don't think my dad was equipped to even handle that.
Right.
His daughter was molested.
Right.
And not only by him, by one of his friends too. Later on, I was a little bit older. I think I was like 12.
When
Maybe
you
a
say
little
by
younger.
him,
By
where
by my dad's friend.
by your dad's friend?
Yeah,
Oh.
because they didn't. My parents didn't have any boundaries.
Oh.
Boundary word again.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, it can happen so fast. And it was
Mm-hmm.
the they had a friend that came over, and he got in a fight with his wife,
Mm.
and he needed a place to stay, so they put him in bed with me.
Oh, they did.
Yes, they did. Yes.
Jesus.
Again, just no idea, not even thinking about that happening. So it happened again, and then it kept happening with him a little bit. So again, no safety whatsoever. I did not have
Mm-mm.
any safety wherever I was. I did not feel safe, and I
Mm-mm.
don't think I felt safe until I went to live with my uncle and aunt, because my mom had come after me, and I ended up running away,
Mm.
and I was 15 at the time. So I was getting to the point where I was fighting back. I was starting to fight back.
Got you.
So I'd fight her back, and I ended up
Mm-hmm.
just running out of the house, and I was like, I never want to go back there again. I don't I just I'm just so tired of being scared all the time.
Exactly. Mm.
And so I ended up living with my aunt and uncle for 2 years, and I think it took me a year there to feel safe there,
Wow.
until I felt safe
Mm-hmm.
living with them. And so I got to experience a normal a normal healthy environment versus the chaotic
Wow.
craziness. I mean, the way I grew up was insane. And I'm sure these stories will come out
Oh yeah,
out
for sure.
during the back to life, because they need to, right? Like,
Right.
this is part of it. So and and a lot of this is hard to share, because it's like so personal and so traumatic that, we probably should put a trigger warning on the
Oh yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
because it can be triggering for other people, and
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah. So didn't feel safe to express anything, and then when I did express it to my dad, I shut down again.
Yeah, because
So
of
it
the
just didn't.
response.
Yeah, it just didn't help my
Oh
adult life. Yeah, it,
no.
it was, not that it's my dad's fault. I'm not blaming him. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't have a real safe place. And it wasn't until, actually, wasn't really until I met my psychologist that I started to see. So I'd gone through a divorce, and then I got into a really toxic relationship probably a couple years after that divorce
Mm-hmm.
happened. And I'm like, and it wasn't physically abusive, but it was very emotionally abusive.
Uh,
And I just wrestled with it. I was like, God, I know logically in my head, I know that this isn't right. Like, I should not be doing
And
this.
I'm still here.
And I'm still in it. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
back and forth in it. And I'm like, please let me out. And so I went to I started seeing a psychologist named Marty Bernstein.
Oh.
And a shout out to him wherever he is. I know he
Oh.
retired, but this little Jewish man probably
Mm.
saved my life
Wow.
because, no, he didn't probably. He did just from the work that we did together.
Whew.
One of the first questions he asked me, which I'd love to share because it
Mm-hmm.
changed everything for me, which was what, and I think it was the first session I had with him because I was like, I don't
Wow.
know how a little bald Jewish man is going to help me, but we'll try it. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. And he was just such a blessing. And
Wow.
he said the first question he asked me was, "What, what relationship, what relationship in the past are you trying to reconcile in this relationship?"
Ooh.
So if you're in an
That's deep.
yeah, so if you're in an abusive relationship right now, I ask you the same thing
Mm-hmm.
because um, it's so true. And I immediately went right to my father because he's male, and it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that makes more sense. But it really didn't make sense because my dad wasn't. Um, my dad he held stuff in too. That's where I got some of it from was because he didn't express himself and he was
Got you.
angry all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, on the other hand, was very up and down. So I would say like a borderline, like basically borderline personalities are they you never know what you're going to get. So they could
It's
flip
like
they could just flip a switch.
walking on eggshells. Yeah.
Really, it is
Uh-huh.
like walking on eggshells. You never know what you're going to get. Is this person going to be jealous of everything I'm doing? Are they
Mm-hmm.
going to be nice? So
Whew.
the thing that I was in was like he was super romantic,
Mm-hmm.
and I fell for that part of it where it was like, oh, he buys me dinner and he brings me flowers,
Mm-hmm.
and he bought me my favorite shampoo, and like
Mm-hmm.
nobody's ever done that, and he was over the top too, which I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think it was a red flag. I
Oh.
do now. So if you have a date, if you're single and a date comes over with a dozen roses, run. Just run away fast, as fast as you can go.
You're like,
So
you're doing a little too much. We're not that
yeah,
close yet.
yeah, it's like, okay,
That's the thing.
yeah, here's some roses
If you're
and
not
lingerie. Well, we haven't even gone on 2 dates. Like, we haven't
exactly,
even-
yeah. If it doesn't make sense to the connection, then and
yeah,
the amount of time and the gifts
yeah,
are so extravagant, and
yeah,
it's like I barely know you.
yeah.
That's a red flag.
I fell for that. I fell for that. So I fell for all of that charm and, oh, well, he opens my doors. He's so nice. And
Mm-hmm.
then and then I just remember him saying one time, like, if you don't stay here, you don't love me, or something like that. And I was like,
Oh,
what? That's weird. Of course I do, or
right,
whatever. And so I felt like I had to prove myself at times.
right.
And I had to, like, again, he acted like my mom. So there would be times
Mm-hmm.
where I would say something and be like, oh, that's so great. That's awesome. Like, oh, you want to go do this thing. Like, I think at the time I was like, I want to go do roller derby. I don't know what was that was what was possessing my head at the time, but he's like, that sounds
That sounds
awesome. You should
fun.
totally do it. And then, like, I don't know, a week later, well, why would you want to do that? That's so dumb. Like,
Oh
again,
no.
using something good against me. And my mother was a pro at that. She did it all the time, all the time. And so um, what I was doing was reconciling
Mm-hmm.
my relationship with my mother, and what comes in for me is the savior complex. And I
Oh.
started this path like in January, oh, not January, I'd say around the time of my first diagnosis of
Mm-hmm.
stage 4 breast cancer is when I started to deal with that part of it where it's like, okay, I just lost my train of thought.
Oh.
Just went out the door. So my dog walked in and totally distracted me.
You said you started dealing with um the savior complex when you first got diagnosed with stage 4
Thank you.
breast cancer.
Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for hearing that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so I was doing what I was doing was wanting to save him and not realizing that's what I was doing was I want to save him, and if I leave, like, he would threaten to kill himself if I left
Oh
the
God.
house.
Oh
So
my
for me it was
God.
like, okay, I don't want him to kill himself and I want to help him. So instead of helping myself, I went into
Mm-hmm.
helping him, and then I became a counselor. So there you go. We went right into being a counselor.
Oh, wow.
So I learned that that was a relationship I was attempting to reconcile. And I met with him, psychologist, for 3 years, and it helped me so much to realize what I was
Mm,
doing, what I was in.
mm,
So it took me a year. It took me a year to get out of the relationship,
mm-hmm.
which really is a blessing because a
Yes,
lot
it
of people
is.
are in it
It's
for
a huge
a
blessing.
long time. And I will tell you, it probably took 3 years to heal from.
Oh,
And I still have things with it where I'm just like, ooh,
yeah. Mm,
something might trigger me or whatever. And I really think I had some PTSD
absolutely.
afterwards too, because I remember what I remember. I was doing online dating. Don't do online dating. I was doing some online dating. Don't do it. Stay away from it.
We don't come with disclosures.
Yes, don't do it. Anyway, so I go to meet this guy, and I'm walking up to this restaurant, and I swear I thought I saw the other
Oh,
guy, the
yeah.
toxic, and I was like, I,
Sorry,
my heart
hyperventilating,
was beating
honey.
really fast, and I
Yeah.
thought it was him. I was like, oh no, he's gonna, try to charm the pants off of me, literally. So anyway, I was like, no, 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 can't be you, can't be you. So I kept walking. I'm like, oh, I gotta go, I gotta do this. Kept walking. It wasn't him.
Oh, thank God.
However, it looked like him, and I did
Mm,
not do well on that date, just so you know. So if you have a
mm.
bad online date, maybe that's why. I don't know. So anyway, it wasn't a good date because I was just
Preoccupied with,
so
yeah.
nervous about what
It's
thought I saw
terrible.
and going back into that. So
Mm,
anyway, it took a little bit of time to heal from it, but the
mm-hmm.
blessing was that I learned that when you're in something like that, it's not a now thing, it's a past thing. Like it's something from the past that's holding you
Mm-hmm.
in it. And so I mean, and I've worked a lot with patients that have been in toxic relationships and that are still in them,
Mm-hmm.
and having a hard time getting out of them, and and some of them just they don't, it's hard to see it when you're in it,
Mm-hmm.
because because honestly, somebody did say you need to pack your bags and get out of there, like you're
Right.
not safe. And
Right.
I'm like, yeah, but he gave me a dozen roses yesterday, so he's fine. It's fine,
Yeah.
even
Eesh.
though he's screaming and yelling that he's going to kill himself and throwing himself on the ground, an adult man.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Yeah, no.
my heart goes out to people,
Mm-hmm.
and men experience it too.
They do.
And it's my heart goes out to you if you're in that, and that I hope that you can find a place to get out of it safely,
Mm-hmm.
because when it finally clicked for me, it just clicked, and that's what Marty kept saying, is one day it's just gonna click.
Really?
Yeah, one
That's
day
so
it will
encouraging.
just click, and it did. It just clicked. I
Good.
was like, huh, I don't want to be in this anymore, like
Right.
really. And I had said I didn't want to be in it anymore multiple times. So
Mm-hmm.
this time was different though, because it was like, nope, I'm done. And I remember being with him on the way back from Glenwood Springs, and I'm thinking, this is it for me. I'm done. I don't want to have another birthday ruined or
Wow.
another day ruined because of
Mm-hmm.
him, and
Mm-hmm.
letting myself be in this mess. So I didn't say a lot to him on the way back, and he dropped me off at my car, and he goes, "Okay, well, I'll see you at my house." And I had no intention of going there. I was like, "All right, see you at your house," just because I
Wow.
knew if I said anything to him, he would it would
Pull it
attempt
in.
to trap me,
That's
and
right.
I did not want to be trapped anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And and it was my birthday, and so I went back home, and he was texting me, "Where are you at?" And he was calling. I did not answer, and I texted him back. I said, "This will be the last text you hear from you. This will be the last text you see, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not calling you, and I'm done.
Wow.
I'm just done." And I, I ended it in a text because I just knew like he would.
You
I
saw
didn't
it.
want him to try to trap me again, and so
Right.
I did it in a text, and I blocked him, got him off of everything, and I had done that before too. I had blocked him
Right.
before, and then I even changed phones before, but this time was way different, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was it. I didn't have any contact with him um, at all after
Mm-hmm.
that. So
And you made the difference is when you make the decision in your heart that you're done. You know.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I remember going to church with him one time and just feeling so convicted, like what am I doing with this person? Like, I felt
Mm.
like other people were judging me, and really it wasn't other people were judging me. It was me judging myself,
Mm.
because judgment is like a boomerang. Like,
Right.
it's
That's
really,
so
when
true.
you have judgment on someone, it's really something going on in you, which is sometimes hard to swallow. It's like,
Right.
oh, I don't want to swallow that pill.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
taste very good, but it is like a boomerang. And so I just felt like like church people, creepy
Yes.
Christians were judging me. Like, why are you with this guy? And like, you're
Uh-huh.
probably sleeping with him. Like, all this stuff going
Oh,
through my head.
yes.
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
and super convicted,
Oh, yes.
and and I know that wasn't their judgment. It was
Right.
my own shame of it, and like putting up with somebody hurting me
Yes.
again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of shame in that as well. It's like putting up with someone hurting you again,
Mm.
which was a big one for me. And it's like, who's going to really help me out of this, you know? Um, and so anyway, that's that story.
And that kept you silent too. Like you're
Yeah,
silent when you needed help.
right,
You know, and
absolutely.
I see like that same. I just see like the enemy in that. You know what I'm saying? Do like shutting down your voice in your childhood, in your
Well, it's a lie.
adolescence,
It's a big lie.
right?
It's a big
In
lie.
your young adulthood, you know,
Yes.
like just and it's the same. It's the same thing because I had a similar relationship like that too. And I remember as soon as I actually started talking about it is when I got free.
Right.
So I there was a really big argument that I had with my with ex I had, and he was accusing me of cheating, and it got so bad that we were arguing in the house, and he ran after me, and I went into the bathroom and I slammed the door. However, when I went to slam the door, his forearm was in the door.
Oh no.
So I hit his arm and then he pulled it out and I shut the door because I was just like, oh my gosh, like I gotta just get away
Well,
from
you're
you.
scared.
Yeah, I was so scared.
Yeah.
And I locked the bathroom door, and another thing about him is he was a professional boxer. So, and I've never been in a fight in my life. So I was terrified. Like
Yeah.
I was so afraid. And so I'm sitting in the bathroom, and this is when I'm starting to come out of this relationship. Like I got to get out of here. And so this is like the worst, like one of the worst fights that we had. And I'm sitting in the bathroom, and I had just started learning this scripture. It says, "The Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what
Mm-hmm.
man will do to me. I will not fear." So
That's
I'm
a
just
great
telling.
scripture. Thank God for that one.
Yeah, I was literally because I was so terrified of what he would do to me or my family because all the threats and like you were saying the threats your the previous man you dated was making against like that he'd kill himself or and
Yeah.
all all these threats like keep you,
Yeah.
and so that's the same thing, all those threats, all that intimidation, all that fear. And so I was praying that, and then so the evening goes on. I come out of the bathroom after hours because I was so scared, and and I laid down to go to sleep, and I knew I was gonna sleep because I was thinking of how do I leave, like,
Right.
and I didn't go to sleep at all, and he held me, like we were. I was laying down to go to sleep because I had to work the next morning, and he held me the whole night, and the whole time I'm like, is he gonna choke me? Is
Oh
he gonna
goodness.
hit me with something? Like I'm just so afraid. So I'm silently crying for hours and hours and hours, and I'm thinking, is he gonna let me go to work in the morning? So I'm thinking of like all this stuff, and I wake up. I showered. I went to work, and on my break, I talked to him, and I'm like, we need boundaries.
Yeah,
I literally
boundaries.
told him
Yeah.
that.
Four series on boundaries,
Yeah,
or probably a whole year on boundaries.
I told him we need boundaries, and he's like, we don't need any boundaries. And I was like, you think this is okay? Like
we
something's
don't
wrong
we
with
don't
you.
need any boundaries.
Yeah,
That's a red
yeah.
flag.
Like
We,
finally the red
yeah,
flag is
hello.
waving.
It's like not even a little tiny red flag. It's a
Right,
huge red.
right.
It's like a banner red flag.
I love that. And it's
Yeah,
waving.
it's like one of those plain. It's like one of those plain banners. It's
Yeah.
like we don't
And
have to have boundaries, Stephanie. We don't need to have boundaries. It's
exactly.
on a plane flying by.
Yeah. That that almost woke me up. It
Yeah,
got my
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I was like
Good.
after that I called my apartment and asked, the apartment manager for a copy of my lease, I went and grabbed that, and I went to my parents' house, and I told my brothers and my parents, I said, I don't feel safe
Good job.
living
Yeah.
there with our kids and him anymore. I
Good
don't.
job. Yeah.
And yeah, that was what it took to like for me to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I told them. My parents saw I was not okay. My
Oh,
brother
totally.
saw I wasn't okay. My
Yeah.
friends saw I was
Well, a lot of
okay, and
people
I didn't
see it
say
before
anything.
you do.
Yeah, I didn't say
And
anything. Yeah.
and I think part of it too is like, I mean, I heard it so many times. What are you doing with him?
Oh,
Why are you doing this to yourself? I'm like,
mm-hmm.
it's fine. It's like multiple different people saying that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not listening to it.
Right.
So if you're one of those, if you're out there and that's happening, and people are giving you this feedback,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good time to listen.
Yeah, yeah.
Except when you're in it, it's very
It's
difficult. So I don't have any. I do my best to not have any judgment on
definitely not.
you know, it's it's really hard. I mean, and I know
It
women that have
affects
been
every
abusive,
single thing.
could be in it for 20, 25 years,
Yeah.
and it's a hard thing to get out of. It
Mm-hmm.
really is, and you really, however, the truth is you can, and
Yes, you can.
it's never too late. So
Never.
whether it's been 15, 20, whatever,
Yeah.
if you're in something like that, it's a it's still not too late to get out of it,
Not at all.
and
Mm-hmm.
work on those things. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like it's just another way to handle your expression of. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
so glad that you were able to trust your parents and
Yes.
to go back and tell them, because
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, that's when the healing starts, is when you're actually honest about what's happening.
Yes.
And I think my experience with mine was like I was in a lie. I would
Mm-hmm.
even lie to my like my psychologist. I'd lie to
Oh
Marty.
man.
It's
Yes.
like, oh, how are you doing? Oh yeah, well, I'm doing fine. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, we're doing fine together. Like, it's great, when it really is not great.
Mm-hmm.
So lying to him is, it's kind of weird to say that you're
Yeah.
lying to your psychologist, because you're so afraid that he's going to judge
Mm.
you, or there's
Yes.
going to be some sort of shame there. But
Mm-hmm.
I broke through a lot of that with him, where I was able to be honest
So
and
good.
say, I'm in it again. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
was out of it, now I'm in it again. So
Mm-hmm.
I got to that point where I could trust him, and it was hard to trust him because he's a male. First of all,
Mm-hmm.
he was a male, and
Mm-hmm.
um, obviously I had trust issues with male and females. Really, I mean, all of it,
That's the same thing
all
as
of
my
it,
mom. Yeah, it
all of
was
it.
tragic.
Yeah.
It's tragic. I mean, not that it's better to have one or the other. However, when it's both and it's all,
It's all, yeah, it's
ugh, that's
all, yeah, it's really hard, because
yeah, it's
it's like,
so hard.
who can you trust?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there was definitely a trust building happening with us, and
Mm-hmm.
I was sad when we ended. It was
Yeah.
he retired, and I just remember bawling my eyes out.
Oh, I
He's like, I
bet.
love you, and I was like, oh, I love you
Oh
too. It
man.
was just such a special relationship,
Yes.
and really incredibly grateful I broke through the barriers on that, because
Mm-hmm.
when somebody had recommended him, I was like, first of all, I don't want a male. I don't know anything
Wow.
about being Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just
Wow.
older. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a phone call with him, and I was like, all right, I'll just try it out. And I was he had me
Change it up.
pegged. He had me pegged. I tell you, within like 10 minutes, he knew what I was doing, and
Wow.
so I was hooked on that. And I didn't think I would need. I was really scared of the tough love part. Like,
Oh, okay.
I was I was scared of, like, of the like, I just imagined my dad being like, "Well, why are you doing that? That's so stupid."
Oh, see.
And so I had to get through that part of it, of like, well, he's gonna think I'm stupid,
So
or
that's why you weren't expressing.
right. I
Oh.
was really afraid of that. He's gonna
Mm-hmm.
judge it, all that stuff, and
Yeah.
it took me a minute, but anyway.
Yeah.
So I think all the things that we're talking about, have just led up to, in being in a, going into adulthood, just so hindered, and like,
Yes.
even up until, I would say November 2023, I think. Yeah, 2023, when I was first hospitalized and going through all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
that's when I really, really believe God was working on my expression.
Wow.
And I remember boundaries were being, hear that word again, boundaries being crossed left and right while I was sick. Um, I just had some push with, and I think it's really important to talk about is, well, don't do chemo, don't do radiate, like don't do that stuff. Radiation wasn't an option, but like don't do those things because all of those things will kill you.
Wow.
And so boundaries were being crossed left and right around that and around my medical care and what I chose. And
Right.
I've chose integrative and to be integrative, to have a holistic, also have the medical side because you here's the thing is there's a camp and we're going a little bit off topic
No,
here, but
this is perfect. I feel like.
yeah. So the medical, like, there's this holistic side. So they call them in the old days. They call them spin doctors, and the spin doctors are the ones that are like, oh, take this drug, or I was told to eat grapes for 3 months. I still love that one.
I don't know why.
It's actually really funny. So there was a guy, I guess there was some guy somewhere that had thyroid, or he had a tumor in his neck. So and so he ate. This is the story. He ate grapes for 3 months, and his tumor went away. And so it's a miracle. Cancer's cured. And so I was told that. And my sisters have this joke with me where they're like, you know what? We're gonna have you stand somewhere, and we're just gonna throw grapes at you for 3 months. You don't even have to eat them, and we'll see if that works.
Oh my God.
So anyway, I had a lot of that going on, and it was really difficult because here my doctors are saying one thing, and here's this other side saying another thing. Like if you do the medical model, it'll kill you, and if you do this side, the medical model is saying don't do that side because that's scary because there's no scientific evidence or anything. Like who watched the guy eat grapes for 3 months? Because I want to see that study. Like you would have to really monitor that to see if that would even really be a thing, because who knows what he really did, and maybe he did do that and that was his belief and it worked.
Right.
But the thing I've learned about cancer cells are that, and I didn't know this, but we all have cancer cells. And at the time I was diagnosed, I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about cancer. I thought I did. Oh, I didn't know anything.
Wow.
Maybe this much is what I knew. And the part that I did know was that it's not a great thing, basically, and that it could kill you. So those are the things I knew about it. But and I will just throw this out there too is that so heart disease is the number one leading cause of death, and cancer's coming in really close. Actually, cancer is going to probably beat it.
Whoa.
And it won't be that long. So just throwing that fact out there. So it's really important to take care of our bodies. And I would say that it looked like I was. I really wasn't, though. Like getting down into the nitty gritty of it, not really. I mean, I was working a lot of hours under lots of stress. There's so many things. I mean, this could be a whole nother podcast for sure. There's just so many things that I believe contributed to it, and I'm part of it. I'm part of it, and how I take care of myself is really important to me now. And so what I tell people is let you taking care of yourself be important to you now, before something like this does happen. So the two camps out there, and and I'm really in a fog when I was first diagnosed. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. I mean, my blood was tanked. I had like no platelets pretty much. So I was getting transfusions, and then just my boundaries were being crossed left and right. And I didn't have the capacity to even deal with it. Like I was like dealing with a life-threatening disease. So however, looking back at it, just so many boundaries being crossed. And then they still continue to be pushed, and now I'm just able to handle it differently, and I handle it in a more healthy way where I'm like, no, I'm not going to actually do that thing. I'm not going to drink bleach, and I'm not going to put myself in jeopardy that way, which I think it would be. And what I've come to recently and since January is like, and we say this in the 90-day program, is like, who are you listening to and why are you listening to them?
Wow.
And it's like, okay, I'm listening to the doctors and I'm listening to this other side, And I believe there's really a lot of good things on the other side, the holistic side that I am doing. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing massages, and I'm doing everything I can to take care of myself. I'm eating healthier than I ever have. Well, not
Mm-hmm.
lately, but let's be honest. I had strawberry shortcake the other night.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's okay. Like
Yeah, here
I
and
I
there. Yeah,
just
balanced.
I realized that like the person in charge is God and is my
Mm-hmm.
master physician, and like trusting that he has all the right doctors in all the right places and saying all the right things.
Mm-hmm.
And if there isn't one, well, there was a radiologist I had that was like
Right. Not okay.
not a good thing. She said, you can either do this or we can just check you into hospice. So for those
Get her
list,
off the team
yeah,
immediately.
for those listening, the update here,
Jesus.
yeah, the update is that when I went to Sedona, I went and like I have PTSD from Sedona now because every time I
Mm.
go, I get something happens. But anyway, I went to Sedona in January, and I started to get headaches really bad. I mean, to the point where like it felt like a head freeze that would never stop. Is how bad it felt. And
Ooh,
I'm like,
that's
okay, I
awful.
don't know what is happening. I don't know if I have allergies or what is going on or
Mm-hmm.
congestion or whatever. So I got back. They ordered an emergency CT scan, and basically the cancer spread to my brain.
Mm.
And so they were like, okay, well, we need to get you into the radiologist because you're going to have radiation. And I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. I do not want to do any of this. Like
Mm-hmm.
and the headaches were so bad. So I was put on a steroid, which I don't know how anyone does steroids. If you're doing that on purpose, I don't know why, because
Mm.
they're
Oh
terrible.
man.
So I was put on a pretty high dosage of a steroid, and
Mm.
I could not sleep. I was wide
Oh
awake
my
for
God.
hours a day, like just
That's
fatigue.
not good
No, it's not.
for healing.
It's
Oh
not good for
my
anything.
God.
Yeah. So,
Oh my
however, the
God.
headaches stopped, so that was great. I didn't have the headaches anymore, but now I
Goodness.
have another battle.
Mm, mm,
So,
mm.
was put on that for a little while and went to see a radiologist. And the radiologist I went to see showed me the scan, and then she was like, you know, it will be we're gonna what we're recommending is 10 rounds of radiation, which doesn't seem so bad. And then, however, you don't have to do it. We can just check you into hospice. And I was like, wait a minute, did she just say that? Like, my brain
Oh.
was like, what in the world?
Oof.
And so I left there very much in a breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing is that words really matter. What you say to people really matter.
Yes, it does. That expression, right? Once again, expressing, expressing, expressing,
Yeah, they
expressing.
really do matter. And like
Man.
what you're saying to people matter. And
Yeah.
that's one
Ugh.
thing that I'm really working on now is my language because I
Mm.
say bad words all the time. Well, it's not as much now. Like I'll be like, oh, like okay, don't say that word, because I've been in such a habit of just saying these words,
Mm-hmm.
and they really do matter.
Mm.
And so that implant, I felt like she implanted something in my brain, and I spiraled. I was like so angry, and I had all this repressed anger come out, which is actually not a bad thing. However, just angry, 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 and just angry at cancer, angry at just everything. And then I'm just like, okay, God, like this is not in my control. It's just not, nothing is in my control. I am very clear now that nothing is in my control
Mm.
because you're not going to be able to control this with your your um, your methods. So what the methods are outside of us, right?
That's
So
right.
where the peace and the comfort come from are from the master physician, and that's what I started to realize this time
Mm.
around was like stop listening to people on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
like go to the source. The source is the master physician, the doctor, the one that has your best interest at heart,
Amen.
because I do believe that God wants me whole and healed and
Absolutely.
healed. And
Absolutely.
so
For his name.
if
Yeah.
right
For
for
you.
him,
He loves. Yeah.
exactly.
He
So
loves you.
I um I started camping out there
Mm-hmm.
instead of the other way, because really up until January I was the other way. I was like listening to everything,
Right.
and I was listening to God too. However, I was more scattered everywhere. I'm like, okay, what do
Mm-hmm.
I do? What do I do? And we were just talking about this earlier. It's like,
Yes.
what voice do I listen to? Do I listen to
Mm-hmm.
the one that says this or the one that says this?
Right.
And it's like either one of those. You don't listen to either one of those. So you listen to your you listen to God and what He's telling you to do versus what everybody else is saying. And that gave me
Right.
so much peace and comfort
Good.
and freedom. Like I have so much freedom now. I'm saying, I'm not really interested in rubbing a crystal together and hoping for the best.
Right.
I'm actually going to look to God and ask Him, like, what do I do
What
here?
do you do?
And like everything I've asked Him for, He's answered. So I was like, please God, I just really want off the steroid. This is not working for me at all.
Right.
And I think so I started at a 12 milligram dose, and then I went all the way down to like, I don't know, 6. I went half. And that's when I started to pray. I was like, okay, I really want off of this.
Right.
And, you know, please, can you intervene and help me off of this? Because I just want off of it. I'm not sleeping, and I really would like to go to sleep. And I just kept turning it over to Him, like, I really just want to sleep, Lord. Can I sleep, please?
Yes.
And finally, they said they would wean me down even further. So, and I was like, well, can I completely get off of it, like slowly? They're like, oh yeah, that's our hope, is that you'll get off of it completely. And so, within a matter of a couple of weeks, I was off of it completely, just turning it over to Him.
Yes.
And I was like, thank God. And the next day that I was off of it, I actually slept 8 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, thank God,
Thank God.
because I am losing my mind. I wasn't able to drive because I was so tired, and not able to sleep. So got me off of that, and then I was on another drug. And this talk about, like, it's like the thing in the medical model is that you take a drug and then you take another drug to fight symptoms of the other drug,
the other one, yes.
which is very frustrating. And
Yes.
so that's what was happening. I was like, okay, God, I put this drug in your hands. I don't see any value to this drug whatsoever.
Right.
I don't feel good. I don't feel like it's helping me in any way. And the next day I was off of it. So
Yes.
so it does really work to just trust Him, and like maybe it worked for a time, but it doesn't now.
Right.
So with anything I'm on, that's what I just pray to be off of it. I'm like, okay, well, do you really want me on this the rest of my life?
Right.
Like, is it possible to have a miracle where I'm not on anything?
Yes.
Because that's what I would want. And I do believe that's true for God too, is that, like, again, that's where the healing is, where it's like trusting that He wants everyone whole and complete and healed. So, and I often go back to the November, when I was diagnosed in November. I think January must be the magic month, because January was around the time where I felt God say, you need to get up.
Right. Start moving.
And I was like, oh, I did not want to. I was like so in a fog. And I was like, okay, God, I mean, I got to start moving. I guess time is now. My aunt's like, do you really want to be doing that? I'm like, yeah, I do. I don't want to be on oxygen. I told someone, I felt like I don't even know why I made it this way, but like I pictured just a 90-year-old man on the couch with oxygen. And that's how I felt.
Oh,
and I don't know why I chose that vision, but that's what I felt like. And my son, he came down one day and he was like, hey, you want to walk to the mailbox with me? And I said, yeah, because he was expecting something. And it was snowing. There was snow on the ground. It was hard to walk. And so I went with him. I put we linked arms, and we started walking to the mailbox. And that's when I started to get better. And it was rapidly. I mean, I'm telling you. And that showed me that when I obey His voice, things just happen rapidly. And like my doctors are like, well, everything is like normal. Your levels are normal. Your blood levels are normal. So now we can start treatment, because they weren't even going to put me on anything because my blood was so low.
So you couldn't have handled it. Your body couldn't have handled the medication and stuff.
My body wouldn't have been able to handle it. It probably would have killed me.
Wow.
So then I was able to start treatment. So I started, and it was fine. There was one drug that was causing some heart problems. Immediately taken off of it.
Good.
Yeah. So really, I just say all that as like, okay, do you want to be healed? And then it's like, pick up your mat and walk. So
I like that.
The story of the man at Bethesda is just so resonated in my body and my heart,
Mm-hmm.
because the man there, he was at um, the pool of Bethesda, was basically it. For those who don't know, it's a place that people believe they could be healed, and it was it's all the sick and the lame and the people that had diseases were all at this pool,
Mm-hmm.
and they believed that like if an angel came down and touched the water, it would have a ripple, and
Mm-hmm.
if you were the first person to the pool to touch it, you would be healed. So that was their
Yes.
belief, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of reminds me of the grapes.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the grapes is like, oh well, if I eat 3 months of grapes, then I'll be healed. So it's kind of like that to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that outside voice saying that that's what's going to heal you. And so they believed this, and I don't know why he kept believing it for 38 years.
You know what? I really believe he saw 38 miracles.
38. Oh.
I think he saw it happen for
Oh,
people
he must have. Yeah,
because
yeah. That
I don't.
makes sense.
I think he was there that long and waiting.
Yeah. Well,
And
then he
because when
couldn't.
Jesus came, he said, "Nobody's here to take me to the pool." Or
Oh yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
he was getting walked over basically, because he couldn't
Exactly.
walk. So
Right.
the guy we're talking about was paralyzed, and
Yes.
so he would crawl.
Mm.
He would crawl to the pool. I couldn't imagine crawling to a pool for all those
All
years,
those years.
and knowing
Mm-hmm.
that it might not happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think um, so Jesus sought him out on purpose, which is I think
Mm-hmm.
very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and was like, well, do you want to be healed? Like, you
Right.
know, and he's like, yes, or he didn't even say yes. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even think Jesus gave him an option to answer.
I think he, if I remember correctly, he said, "Do you want to be healed?" And then he told him like his excuse or like
Oh
not
yeah,
not his excuse.
well, no,
His
it was.
his
He said nobody's letting me in there.
yeah, like there's no he told him he told him his barrier. You know what I'm
Yeah, he
saying?
did. Yes, he
Yeah,
did.
so he's like, "Do you want to be healed?" And he's like, "There's nobody here to."
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So he and even thinking of that him being honest about cuz I feel like that's honesty and stuff like that is an expression as well. And like as soon as you were honest and said, "I do want to live," and you got up off the couch and you
Yes,
walked with your son
yes.
to the mailbox, you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, as soon as you're honest, then God can move in a
yeah.
miraculous way as
That's a
well.
really good way to look at it.
Yeah.
I looked at it like he's a victim, right? I mean, he kind of
Uh,
is a victim. He is
yes.
putting himself as a victim, but yeah, he's
Right.
being honest about it. I mean, that makes sense. I mean,
Exactly.
I agree. I think him being honest about it is a good
Hmm.
thing. I mean, because we all go a victim sometimes, and
Absolutely.
like, I mean, I couldn't even imagine being him and having to deal with that for so long.
I just thought about something. When you're in a condition such a long time that you don't even think about being out of it anymore, you just think about what keeps you in it.
Ooh, that's really a powerful thought. Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was just stuck in it for so long. He needed a miracle, right?
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, and I just thought it was so powerful. God was like, well, I don't even care about your excuse. Get up and walk.
Right.
Like,
Right.
stop it,
Right.
stop it, stop doing that. Like, just get
Right.
up and walk, you know. And so,
Mm,
and it was funny because he didn't even know who Jesus was.
exactly.
That's what
That's so
I
powerful.
know. He didn't
That's so
even know who
powerful.
Jesus
Yeah.
was. So I think that just that in itself is like pretty amazing. At first, I didn't realize that, but then when I was reading it, I was like, Jesus
Mm-hmm.
had to come back to him and say, "Look, I'm
I'm
Jesus.
him.
Like, hello."
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I thought that was really just such a story that keeps on giving to me. You know, like
Yes.
what you said makes a lot of sense. Like, again, there's these stories in the Bible that like I just keep getting so many gifts from the same
Mm-hmm.
some of the same stories that,
Exactly.
and that one is one of the rocks I stand on. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
God, I just love this story so much in so many ways because I've felt the same way. Whereas like it's like what am I waiting for? And I
Mm.
remember having a place when I was married where I'm like, what is my purpose? Like I don't even know why I'm here. Am I here
Wow.
to just be married? I don't know. So I kind of went through that phase of my
Mm-hmm.
purpose and fulfillment and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, that that story just was so powerful. It was like just get up and walk. Like what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I rapidly healed. And actually, since then, the good news that I have is that I've had since that first PET scan, the very first PET scan,
Mm-hmm.
it was riddled in my bones, riddled.
Wow.
So I remember having a team of doctors come into the hospital room, and one
Mm-hmm.
of them was crying, pretty much crying. And I was like, "Are you
Wow.
okay?" Like I'm asking her if she's okay, and
Oh,
she
wow.
is crying. And basically, they're telling me like,
Wow.
we don't know. We don't know what's going to work. If this is even going to work, we don't know.
Whoa.
Like they couldn't even put me in any sort of treatment at that point.
Golly.
So they're
Mm,
just
mm,
like
mm.
kind of like we're sorry, sorry. And they
Wow.
told me that it was aggressive and that it was all in
Mm-hmm.
my bones and all that stuff. And that was the first scan I had, was lit up like a Christmas tree. But then then after I started healing, the blood started working. My levels came back fine. Um, the that this PET scan I had, the following 3 months, nothing. Not even. So I had a mass under my right breast,
Mm-hmm.
no mass, no breast surgery, nothing. So
Wow.
it really is a miracle,
It is a
and
huge
it's
miracle.
still that way. So the
Right.
only place that it's really that it's active is in my brain. And actually, I don't even know now. Like I haven't had any headaches or anything like
Right.
that.
Thank God.
And so I'll have a scan in like 3 more weeks. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll have another scan because I'll be
Mm-hmm.
through the treatment that I've had. I did go through 10 rounds of radiation, lost my
Oh,
hair
okay.
again, whatever, it's just hair. And so I did the 10 rounds of that, still don't
Mm-hmm.
have any headaches. Had a
Good.
had an appointment with my radiologist, and he's
Mm-hmm.
great. I got a new one, by the way,
Yes.
because the other one was not very fun.
Yeah. You're like, that expression is not going to work here.
Yeah,
Like,
and
you got to go with those words somewhere else.
the radiologist I see
Ugh.
now, he's like, I'm sorry about her, and
Oh.
he's like, you look so good. You look like
Yes.
you're doing great, and
Yeah.
I'm really doing well. I'm active,
Mm-hmm.
slowly getting back into the gym, walking a lot.
Yeah.
Um, those just taking care of myself in a good
Exactly.
way. So,
Mm.
and so no, like I've had clean PET scans since from the neck
Good.
down.
Good.
So we're just gonna. I mean, here's the thing: I'm not dead, and I'm
Right.
not gonna live like I am. So,
Exactly.
and
Thank
I
God.
was just like, I'm not listening to her. Like, I don't want to go to hospice. Like, that sounds
Right.
terrible. I don't want to go lay in
Yes.
a hospital bed for
Yes. Yes.
however long I have,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't. The thing is I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and the only one that knows my timeline is God.
That's right.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I just keep putting that in His hands and keep
Mm-hmm.
keep going there. So, anyway, so follow up in 3 weeks. So we'll report what happens there. And so far everything is good.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I've I've had. Uh, Thank God I'm not on the memetine.
Mm-hmm.
Memetine is what I was on. It was supposed to help with memory, and so I'm off of that. And like my memory's my
Wow.
memory's doing
A
well.
lot better.
It's doing well. Like I'm learning to reframe things or rephrase. Like I've done it before, but like this
Mm-hmm.
time I don't. So anybody out there that struggles with short-term memory loss is to never use the word forget in your language.
Okay.
So what your body knows, like your unconscious knows where your keys are,
Mm-hmm.
because your body knows where it put it,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's really talking to that and saying what I say is like, remember where my keys are, and it'll take me right to my key. My body will go right to my keys. Sometimes it happens like that, and
Wow.
sometimes it takes a couple of minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but really it's you're not saying you forget it.
Oh, you're um calling it. You're commanding it.
Yeah,
It's
you're
like,
basically
remember where this
yeah
is. Remember.
you're remembering it versus saying you
Wow.
forgot it, because you didn't forget it.
Right. You
Because
do remember.
I go out to my car. I'd go out to my car sometimes and be like, man, I forgot my keys.
Mm.
Well, actually, I didn't forget my keys because my mind just told me that I don't have my keys. So I didn't forget my keys.
Exactly.
So
That's
so I
interesting.
say I don't use the word forget anymore, and I
Mm-hmm.
catch myself sometimes still saying it.
Mm-hmm.
However, now when I'm not remembering where I put something, I will say, remember where I put my keys. I mean, I'll walk around the house saying, remember where I put my keys? And my kids are like, what is she talking? Who's she talking to? Like,
I love how your kids are always there.
they,
They're like, "Oh."
yeah, they're like, what are you, Mom, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm telling you. And like Jason and I will get into these discussions. He's like, well, that doesn't work. I'm like, oh, trust me, it works.
Does.
So now I can go right to my keys. I'm like, okay, remember where my cell phone is? Oh, yeah, it's over here. And so I'll go right to it. And sometimes my mind doesn't even have the thought of where it is. My body will just go there.
Wow.
It's very interesting. So if you have memory issues, try it out.
Yes,
Try it out and see if it works. So
for sure.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So anyway, we're kind of at a point where we could probably wrap up. 'Cause I
Mm-hmm.
think we've been going a little. I haven't even
Yeah.
checked the time. It's
Oh,
probably been an
I
hour or
turned
so.
everything off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably been an hour or so. However, we still have quite a bit of
Mm-hmm.
story and testimony and
Oh, yeah.
how we how we all talking about how we came to Christ and
Mm-hmm.
I mean that could be for next time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
because I really want to talk about that as well. I was like, well,
Yes.
how did you get to this point?
Right, right.
Because I really want to hear your story as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
How you got to this place. Yeah,
Yeah.
but for me again, I use the word click before when that just clicks,
Mm.
and I feel like that recently. It just clicked for me where I was like, like I actually know who I am
Wow.
instead of pretending to be somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's kind of where I was. And if you're listening or you're watching or whatever, you can see the kind of split I was going through. Like if you look at the podcast was started out of the pool of Bethesda,
Wow.
because that was like, well, do you want to be healed, or what are you waiting
Right.
for? Like, get up. Like, what's your problem? Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
not dead. So, like, if
Mm.
I didn't want you here, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
So that was the start of back to life. Was like, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, like, I need to get back to life.
Yes.
So that's where that came from, was a pool of Bethesda. So I'm really looking forward to continuing the journey with you, and
Yes.
I'm grateful for everybody that's watching and
Mm-hmm.
listening. And if I think Stephanie and I both really want you to have an opportunity to receive a message,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is for you, and that my prayer, our prayer actually, because we prayed
Mm-hmm.
about this before, is that we're hopeful that you will receive something good out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's healing or you're coming to Christ, whatever that is for you,
Right.
we just want you to have the opportunity to receive the message. And so that's why we're expressing it out to the world.
Yes.
And some of this stuff is very touchy and vulnerable. And yet I
Mm-hmm.
think that these things are what we need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's not about the likes or any of that, even though my ego wants to go there sometimes. It's like, please like my video. Um, it's not that way so much anymore. We are in a place of giving and and
Mm-hmm.
gratitude, and again, that's the key to receivership. So we hope that you will be open to receiving what we
Mm-hmm.
have to share. So
Yes.
thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm so
Yes.
excited about the next one. I want to do it now.
Me too.
So thank you for being here
Yes.
and coming. I wasn't even actually expecting you.
I know. That's the
So
worst.
yeah, so we had a little bit of a miscommunication where I was like, well, why am I making this so hard? Because I was like, well, do I go to your house? Do you come to my
Right.
house? And so this morning she's like, I'm coming to your house. I was like, why? What? I thought we were doing it on Zoom. But anyway, so here we are.
We're
So
supposed to be here.
this is what's supposed to happen. So
Yeah.
anyway, grateful for you. Grateful for you guys
Yes.
watching, and we'll hopefully see you in the next episode.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.